The Answer online at 560theanswer.com, on the AM 560 mobile app, on your Alexa-powered smart speaker, and on TuneIn, iHeart, and on Odyssey. This is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft and Amy Jacobson on AM 560. The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan and Amy. We have yet another example of yet another teacher who thinks it is judicious to upload her musings, or in this case, song, onto TikTok. That's just how, it's sort of a how thick is their bubble question and answer. How thick is their bubble? They are so insulated from reality and from any differences in opinion that they think this is a good idea, this yet unnamed, unidentified teacher offering this song.
Oh boy.
Here's your ostinato. Terrorist, terrorist, purple for parents are. Terrorist, terrorist, purple for parents are. While some had good intentions, they all were misinformed. Now threatening violence, doxing teachers has become the norm. They come to school board meetings with lots of things to say. And they will bully, cuss, or scream if they don't get their way.
I'm going to go on record. I think she's a music teacher.
I hope she's not. Purple for Parents, she refers to, is a group that started in Arizona in reaction to parents being frustrated about things like teacher strikes and issues with school closures and the politicization of curriculum in K through 12 classrooms, all the things that we're talking about now. So she must be in a school district where Purple for Parents is impactful or has a presence. So when you hear from teachers like this and so many of the other ones we've played, thanks to their own choice to upload their own views in written, verbal, or song form, you shouldn't be surprised at some of what our next guest, Dave Seminara, finds trying to find his sons something to read. The Hardy Boys not available at the school library. Dave Seminara, former diplomat, author of Footsteps of Federer and Mad Travelers, A Tale of Wanderlust, Greed, and the Quest to Reach the Ends of the Earth. Dave, thanks for joining us again. Appreciate it.
Hey, thanks for having me back on the show, guys.
So, you don't need to score that that song, American Bandstand style, but your own story about trying to find stories for your young boys to read at school.
First of all, as soon as my kids get home from school, I'm taking TikTok off of their phones after listening to that horrible song. Yeah. Well, I'm a bibliophile. I subscribe to a lot of different emails, and I get book recommendations from bookstores that I patronize. And one is from the American Booksellers Association, and it's a email that you get every other month called Indie Next, and they recommend usually about 30 or so books per month for children. And my kids are both born in September, so I had birthdays last month. So I was going through these. Of course, aside, what my kids really want for their birthday are video games, like most teenage boys. But what I want to give them are books. So I was looking through all of these recommendations. I actually looked through 3 months' worth of recommendations, children's book recommendations, which encompasses 93 total recommended books. It was absolutely shocking how many of these were political, and you can guess, not political in a conservative way. These are books that are specifically designed and geared to appeal towards far left-wing parents. And there was, I have to say, it covered the gamut. Some of them were about climate change. Some of them were about, let's say, anti-Muslim xenophobia. A lot of them were about immigration. But the biggest trend that I saw were a tremendous number of children's LGBT books. And I'm talking about one of the recommendations, for example, one of the monthly recommendations, for example, I believe there were 10 books recommended for teenagers. And 4 or 5 of them were LGBT oriented, and not just like, okay, there's one gay character in the book. I mean, the entire book, the whole focus of the book, is about some gay related issue. And I was amazed at this stuff.
And all these stories, all these books and stories take place in Texas too, where people are being discriminated against by white rednecks and have to fight against that sort of institutional discrimination. I mean, it's a that's the David and Goliath story they tell throughout these different political angles.
Yeah, like, for example, I'm looking at the article now. For example, one of these books was about drag, prom, and embracing your inner queen, featuring a fat, openly gay boy stuck in a small West Texas town. And this stuff was sort of typical. And I thought, wow, is this peculiar to whoever's making these recommendations? So I went on to Amazon and searched further. And actually what I found is this is completely representative of what's going on in the publishing industry. I mean, this summer, this has been going on for years, but I would say this summer the trend accelerated in a huge way. If you look at the children's books that came out this summer, it's incredible how, the indoctrination is unbelievable. And you can look and look and look, but you will not find books that are catering towards conservative parents at all. You'll have to really search for these things. I should say they are out there perhaps on Amazon, but you've got to know the name of the title. Like, they're not going to pop up in your general searches. And, I went to Barnes & Noble and asked if there were conservative-themed books for children, and they looked at me like they didn't even have any idea what I was talking about. And they said, well, if you have the title of something, you might be able to find it on our website, but we certainly don't have something crazy like that here in our stores.
Well, you have a protagonist and antagonist in every book. So is there any books that take place in Florida? Because, Texas is the enemy, Georgia's the enemy, and Florida.
I don't know if I saw any that take place in Florida. That's a good point. I don't know if I saw any like that.
Well, this is consistent. The scholarship, in quotation marks, is consistent with the culture on campus. So this story out of Burlington, Vermont, the Gender Sexuality Alliance Club at Burlington High School organized the halftime show, Friday night's football game. Spectators in the stands dressed up in rainbow clothes, accessories, and makeup, and cheered the halftime show featuring essentially drag queens. That was the halftime show at a high school football game in Burlington, Vermont.
Yeah. The thing that I noticed, too, the common thread of all these recommended books, too, is that almost none of the protagonists of these books were straight white male boys. If they were white, they had to be gay. And otherwise, there's, a lot of, the protagonists included a lot of feminists, Muslims. You have to be a person of color. It's incredible. None of these books are really geared towards boys. And the thing is, as I pointed out in the article, is that boys are actually boys need to read more than ever, because the gap between male and female achievement in schools, as I'm sure you guys are aware, is growing and growing. Boys are not doing very well in school. They're not going to college as much. You'd think that the publishing industry would understand the imperative to get boys reading, but apparently not.
Well, what are some books that you found that you could recommend? Anything?
Yeah, you know what? Actually, I have gotten a lot of feedback from the article, and people have recommended some great books to me. And I started putting a bunch of them on my Amazon list. And maybe I'll send you guys a link that someone sent me. There's a story called, you guys could probably your listeners could probably also Google it. It's called 13 Books Recommended for 13-Year-Old Boys. And it's a great list of books. I'll tell you a couple of them right off the top of my head here. One of them is Outlaws of Time. And that's a series. It's Outlaws of Time, The Legend of Sam Miracle, which looks really good. There's another one called Beneath by Roland Smith, apparently that's quite good. There's The Whaler's Daughter. There's a whole bunch of them, but there are some books out there. You got to look for them. And I'll send you guys a link. Maybe you guys can put it up on your website. There's quite a good article that someone sent me that has a bunch of recommended books. My kids haven't read any of them yet, so we'll see. But we'll see how it goes.
By the time they're 13, they should be reading Milton Friedman already. They should be well beyond that stage. Let's get these boys up to speed, my friend.
Good luck. I'm just happy to get them reading anything, to be honest.
Yeah,
anything
right.
That's not left-wing and political. I'd like to have books in their hands.
Well, here's the thing about the publishing industry, too. In some respects, do we have a situation where we have this sort of symbiotic political alliance? The publishing industry will publish the authors and the books that provide the propaganda that the school districts will buy and assign the kids to read. Right.
And so basically, just for your listeners to understand how the publishing industry works, too, is literary agents are sort of the guardians of what gets published and what doesn't. And I know a lot about literary agents because last year when I was searching for publishers for my two books, I went through the websites of dozens and dozens and dozens of these people. And if you look at the profiles of these literary agents online, they say right in their profiles what they're looking for, and almost every single one of them says that they're looking for marginalized authors and people of marginalized groups. However, what is a marginalized group these days? These days, if you're a white working class kid, you are the marginalized group, but that's not what they're considering marginalized. So it's very clear what the publishing industry is looking for, and it's certainly not people who look like my family, that's for sure.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of which, I don't know anybody who's watched this yet I can talk to, but maybe you, since you've got young boys. Squid Game, have you watched this?
No, I haven't, but I understand it's the most downloaded show in Netflix history.
Yeah.
My boys watched it and then watched it again. They watched the Korean version and then they watched when the Americans, ad-libbed. The American.
What?
Well, no, there's a Korean version with
subtitles
subtitles
versus dubbed.
Versus dubbed. Yeah.
Yes.
And they love it. They said it's similar to Hunger Games, but I won't watch it because I wasn't into Hunger Games because as a parent it made me very anxious because you kill people for money.
The one show that we did watch together that I had to nix, as I pointed out in this article, was Survivor. Survivor was a show that my kids and we all gathered. It's like the one show we could all agree upon. But now I had to give that one up, too, because in the first episode of the season premiere this year, the host, Jeff Probst, would always say to the castaways, the survivors, "Come on in, guys," would be sort of his signature call for them to come in and start the challenge.
Yeah.
And this year he said, "I want to start off by, is this term offensive to anyone? Come on in, guys. Should we axe this? I want to be part of the moment, blah, blah." And at first everyone said, no, the term is still cool. And actually even a woman who described herself as a queer feminist on the show, she said she wasn't offended by the term. But later in the episode, a guy who said he was married who had a pregnant husband at home. So a guy who was a gay man who said that he had a pregnant husband at home, meaning a transgender husband, right, who was pregnant with their second child, he said, was offended by the term. And so Probst said, "You know what? I agree with you." And he said, "I'm never going to say that term again." So they essentially canceled the term. They canceled the term "come on in, guys," based upon the objection of a gay man with a pregnant husband at home. And as soon as that happened, the TV was clicked off, and I will never watch the show again. And I looked online, and I know I'm not alone on this. There were hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people online saying they'll never watch Survivor again. And it's like the 41st season of this show, too. It's really kind of a joke how political they've gotten.
Yeah, the spoiler for Survivor is going to be nobody survives this culture. I mean, it is it is a death cult. That's what's going on now. I mean, the pronoun usage and that sort of silliness on Survivor. Dave Seminara, former diplomat, author of Footsteps of Federer and Mad Travelers, A Tale of Wanderlust, Greed, and the Quest to Reach the Ends of the Earth. Dave, thanks for joining us again. Appreciate it.
Thank you. And by the way, no speed cameras here in Florida, and we have the lowest rate of COVID in the country. So come on down, guys.
There you go.
Well, some are already down there. Congratulations.
Absolutely.
All right. Thank you
Take
so
care,
much.
guys. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks.